Hey church, hope that this video finds you well. We just wanted to take a second to explain to you why we've made some of the decisions we've made to cancel services and other events going forward, at least for right now. Um, we also need to tell you a little bit about what we think the next season looks like moving forward as we kind of try to figure out what's next with everything that's going on. So first off, in terms of cancellations and postponements and all those kind of things with our services and everything else, we really think, after spending a lot of time of praying and thinking and deliberating and getting wise counsel, we really think this is the best way for us to protect our congregation, hopefully from getting this virus at all. We hope that it's a way for us to serve medical professionals, and I'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. We also hope that it's a way for us to really love people who are sort of higher at risk in our community and just in the Abilene community by trying to make sure that we're not spreading this disease. As we've sort of looked at what experts have to say, as we've talked to local physicians who are kind of on the front lines trying to battle this thing, what they've told us is that the best way for us to deal with this is to start closing down large gatherings early so that we can slow the spread of the disease, if not prevent people in our gatherings from getting it entirely. What that'll do is it'll help us to make sure that our medical systems, our medical professionals are not overwhelmed by everyone getting sick sort of at the same time. So even if all this does is slow things down, it's going to help people, it's going to save lives by making sure that people can get taken care of because there's enough resources to go around if we spread this thing out. So that's part of why we're doing this. We also hope some people just don't get it because we have canceled gatherings, and we really are hopeful that this will help us to protect people who are in those higher risk categories, whether they're in our church or just sort of people that you're connected with, your family members or loved ones or your coworkers, by making sure that you're not in a large gathering, at least here, so that you're not going to be picking up something here and giving that to someone who's in one of those high risk groups. That's why we're doing this. We're really not trying to operate out of a spirit of fear. We know from 2 Timothy that we've not been given a spirit of fear, right? But that we've been given a spirit of power, a spirit of self-control, and a spirit of love. And that's what we're trying to lean into here, is to try to love people well, both in our church and outside of our church, by making this decision right now to try to make some big steps to caring for people well. Now, as we have learned more about this disease, as we've talked to, like I said, local professionals who are on the front lines of this thing, what we have found is that this is really serious. Now, I know that there's been lots and lots of information about COVID-19 or coronavirus or whatever you hear people talking about. And some of it has been conflicting in terms of whether this is really serious or whether people are just flying off the handle and overreacting. And some of you may have been thinking that we're overreacting. I can tell you that we're making this decision because the people that we've talked to who are practicing medicine in our area are saying that this is the best thing for us to do. This is, in their mind, the appropriate way for us to react. And I want us to take real seriously this moment because those professionals are also telling us that this situation is going to get worse before it gets better. We've already seen serious economic impacts from this disease. The stock market crashing isn't something that just affects people on Wall Street, right? Like, this is impacting people's retirements and livelihoods right now. In addition to that, the oil markets are crashing, which affects a lot of people right here in Texas. Those are serious things. These are real live people that this impacts, and we want to be careful about that. We want to love and care for those people really well during this season. During the season, we're already seeing a lot of school closures, and we're expecting probably there will be even more. That's really hard. It adds a lot of pressure on certain families, right? In addition to that, if you're a kid who gets a couple of hot meals a day from school, it can be particularly devastating to have school closed for a long time. And that's something we want to care about, that we want to be concerned about, that we want to pray about and find ways perhaps that we could serve. But also, as we've seen in other countries, as we're starting to see more and more in the US, this disease has a serious physical toll. It can be really contagious and really dangerous, potentially deadly, especially if you're one of those high-risk groups. So we want to take this thing seriously. This is not something we want to be flippant about. The scriptures urge us to be sober-minded, and so we want to take this seriously. Now, it is common for humans to react in some pretty natural ways that aren't necessarily gospel-centered, biblical, Jesus-follower kind of ways, right? I've experienced these myself, sometimes in the span of 30 minutes, right? It's natural for us to get angry or defensive. I think we have already seen that play out with certain people. It's natural for us to find ways of escaping, to try to just ignore the problem entirely. It's natural for us to just sprint towards panic mode. We do not desire to respond, to react in a natural way. We are people who do not live only by a natural world, but we focus on things above. We want to respond in a supernatural way. And that means responding in the way of following after Jesus, right? And so during this time, we don't just want to cancel services, right? We're only canceling services. We're not canceling church. And so we want to continue to serve you and minister to you, and hopefully you'll find ways of serving and ministering to others in the church and people in your neighborhood and people you work with. But some of the ways that we want to try to do that with you are going to be in some really important areas. First, we want to make sure that all of us as a church are engaging this season as well as possible in terms of what it looks like to do that in a gospel-centered, biblically saturated kind of perspective. And so we want to make sure that we're sending you resources and teaching and things to read and emphasis to pray on and rhythms that you can build into your life during this time so that you can really focus on how we ought to respond as Jesus followers. There is a way, right, for us to respond by finding peace in the sovereignty of God, by finding our joy in the presence of God, and by finding our hope in the faithfulness of God, right? These are the natural, sort of supernatural responses of people who follow after Jesus. So we want to try to make sure that we're engaging this season well. Second, we want to try to make sure that we're caring for you well, especially if you are seriously impacted by this pandemic. If you're one of the people in the high-risk group, if you get sick, if you're just at home for long periods of time with kids, we want to find ways that we can care for you. So we're going to be talking with our elders, our deacons, other leaders to try to make sure that we can serve you as well as possible during the season. Finally, we're going to try to make sure, even if we can't meet together on a Sunday morning, that we're providing you with ways that you can turn to the scriptures with good biblical teaching, which is what we hope to provide each week. We're going to try to make sure that we've got that good teaching for you. We're going to try to make sure that we've got ways for you to respond to the scriptures in worship and in prayer, and that we can do that in some ways, somehow, at least by going through the same stuff that connects us even as we're not able to pile into the same room together. Now, as we move forward, you're going to have other resources coming to us. This first week, Austin's going to be talking with us about a psalm and talking to us about how the Psalms are sort of that medicine chest of the heart. And so find some comfort there. I'd encourage you to read the first part, maybe the first 7 verses of Psalm 46. It's sort of a classic place for us to remember that God is our refuge in times of trouble. But also, we want to make sure that we're a resource for you. So if you need something, if we can pray for something specific, if you've got a specific loved one who maybe is in the medical field, I've got a sister who's on the front lines, who's a doctor. If you've got someone in the medical field, if you've got someone you know who's been in one of these areas that's been impacted by this, if we can be praying for you, please let us know. Also, if there's a way that we can be serving you, you need us to run an errand. If you've got something that you just can't do because you don't feel like you should get out of the house right now, let us know. You can reach out to us through our website, through the app, or you can always just email us at info@thewellabilene.com. So now, we love you. We're grateful for you. We want to continue to minister and serve you. And so as we move forward in this time, check your email and look out for ways that we might be able to serve you in the future. Grace and peace.